Hello and welcome to part 5 of our Excel series. This one's about more formulae. This does assume that you've done the part 1 of our series, our basic introduction, and also part 3, which is our initial formulae session. If you haven't done those, I do suggest you go back and do those now. We are going to look through a variety of formulae. These are chosen because they form part of the MOS, Microsoft Office Specialist qualifications that you can undertake, and they cover a variety of text and sequencing functions. To get the materials, they might be somewhere around this video. If you're a York St John student, you can go onto Moodle, go into the student menu and to digital training. Click onto Digital Training Courses at the bottom on the left and click onto Excel Training Courses, and this is course number 5. We'll double click that, download it and open it up for my downloads. We'll enable editing and let's look at sheet A. So we've got a function here that's called rand_between. It's all about generating random numbers. Sometimes you want them for testing data, maybe for other purposes. It's quite a simple function. It goes rand_between 1 and 1000 here. If I delete that, I'll make it again. So equals, every function is always going to start with an equals. By the time you got to rand and then B, you're down to one selection below there, and I'm going to hit the tab key next to the Q key, the tab key, which types the rest of it in for me. I'm also then going to call up the FX box. Not strictly necessary here, but always a good practice if you're not too sure what's going on. The bottom number, so we can go from anything from 1 upwards. And I'm going to put 1000 again. You can put whatever number you like in there. Say OK, and that will pick a random number between 1 and 1000. Now it's important to note that every time I change any cell on the whole of this Excel sheet, if I type something in over here, it'll recalculate the random number, and the random number is unlikely to be the same twice. So as you copy that down a sheet, you'll find yourself with a constantly changing set of numbers, and every time something else happens on that sheet, those numbers will change. It's worth just remembering something we covered in previous sessions. If I copy those numbers and come over here and I go paste and paste values, paste values is like you've just typed them in and they're locked in there. Now, the originals have changed again because new things have been added to the sheet, but at that point, it's actually locked in the numbers I had there. So if you wanted to generate some random numbers but not have them change every time, paste values. We're going to have a look at equal sequence. I'm going to just delete the ones I've got here because I think they're going to get in the way otherwise. So I've highlighted them. Lots of ways you can get rid of them. I'm going to use clear all on the home menu. Right, let's have a look at equals sequence. By the time I've got most of the way through the first 4 or 5 letters of that, I've got down to one option here. Press tab. And then definitely call up FX box for this. This produces a block, a sequenced block. So it's probably best to do an example. I want 7 rows, I want 4 columns, I want to start from the number 3, and I want to step up in 5s. Say OK to that, and that's giving you a block that you asked for, 4 columns, 7 rows, starting from the number 3 and counting up in 5s. Now that's quite simple to generate a block of data. What you need to notice though is sequence is only in that top left cell there. That's the only place the formula actually exists. It's in that cell there. It's spilling into all these other cells. If I click into one of the other cells, I can see the sequence formula, but it's greyed out and you can't change it. The reason I deleted the data that could have got in the way earlier is if I have something, if I put something in that cell there and then maybe go and change this to, rather than 7 rows, 12 rows, it's actually going to give me an error. It's saying I can't show you this data without wiping out the cell that's already got data in it, and it will just give you a spill error and it won't be able to do anything. As soon as I get rid of that data out the way, there it goes. It can show me the block of data. Let's have a look at sheet B. Sheet B is a sort function. So I've got a simple set of data up here. I've got the names of some fruit and some prices for them. Again, I'm going to start entering it. I'm going to go equals sort, and as soon as I've got kind of most of the way through that, I'm going to press the tab key, and again I'm going to call up that FX box because that's going to help me sort out what's going where and put all the commas in and get things in the right places. So array is the block of data you're interested in. I'm going to hold the mouse down on the word peach, drag across. I've got B2 colon C8, and that means everything from B2 down to C8. Sort index. So this is the column that you want to sort by. Okay, so in this case I want to sort alphabetically, so it's going to be column number 1. First one's number 1. Sort order. Again, you've got choices here, and there's a little bit of help down in the FX box just to help you with this. 1 for ascending, -1 for descending. Okay, so I'm going to go 1 because I want them to go up. And then there's a logical true or false one here for by column or by row. Now by row is the normal sorting. That's going to move the fruit with their associated price, sort them out and put them in a different order. So that's the one I'm going to choose from. So I can actually just leave that blank because that's the default. Whenever you've got a default, you can actually leave the box blank. Say OK. And you can see down here, again, even though the formula is only in one particular cell, you can see that it's filling out all the cells it needs to fit the data in. So it's another one of these ones that you can't have data in the way, otherwise you'll get a spill error. But it's sorted by alphabetical order, but it's kept the matching prices, so apples are 20p. Now they're not being displayed with money here because we haven't set the formatting up on these cells. Now if I go back into the FX box, if I had the sort index as 2, that means the second column, it will sort them in price order. So again, I can do that, and now they're in price order, not alphabetical order. Let's have a look at another formula now on sheet C, the unique formula. And again, I'm going to start typing it, equals. By the time I got to the Q, I've only got unique left. Press the tab key and open up the FX box. Array, that's my data. So it's just the data part I'm interested in down here. I don't really want to get involved with the first name, last name, column headings. These aren't set up as a table. You can work in tables too. That works perfectly well. By column or by row. So I'm going to leave that as a default. I'm also going to leave the next one exactly once as default, and we'll try that again in another example in a moment. If I say OK to that, it's made a copy of the list. Again, the cell is in one place and the data is spilling over into other cells, and it's removed any duplicates. So any of the ones that are in here that had duplicates, it's totally removed them. So it's got this list down to a list of unique people. So for instance, Ella is in here twice. In the original list, Ella only appears once in this revised list over here. Similar thing with the function. You can do exactly the same thing again. Enter unique, click up the FX box, tell it where the original data is. If we turn on, I'm going to leave the by column alone. I'm going to do the exactly once, and I'm going to put true in there, the word true, and say OK. And it's made a list that now is the people who only appeared once in the original list. So it's taken the duplicates out totally. Let's have a look on sheet D for text functions. There's a lot of these, and I've thrown in a couple that aren't actually part of the MOS exam itself, but are pretty useful in real life. So you can see from my examples up here, if you have left and you ask for the first 5 characters of this alphabet here, you'll get the result A, B, C, D, E. Okay. Right will give you the rightmost characters. Mid will give you a bunch of characters from the middle, and you have to tell it where to start and how many you want. Length will tell you how many characters are in a cell. Upper will make them all capitals. Lower will make them all lowercase. And then a couple of extra ones I've thrown in there. Proper capitalizes the first letter of each word. And find tells you the position of a letter within the string you're offering it here. So M is the 13th letter of the alphabet, so it's giving me 13. So take a moment, have a little try with these. They're a bit hard to imagine when you're just using them on the alphabet. We're going to work some examples through on sheet F in a few minutes' time. So try them out in a theoretical way, and we'll have a practical example later. On sheet E, we've got a few joining functions. If I wanted to take these two names in 2 different columns and put them together, I can do that in several different ways. The one to join them together would be concat. So again, I'm going to type equals concat. Now there is an older version of this called concatenate, but concat is the more modern equivalent. So we can just stop there, press the tab key, and then click that FX box. Now there's not a lot to go in the FX box. Now we're working in a table here, so I can click on the same line as I'm trying to make the formula in, click on the first name column, and it's going to write first name in there. I can click in the text box too, and put last name. And if I say OK to that, it's going to copy it down the column, and you can see it's joined the names together. Now, that might not be very useful if what you were trying to do was to make a readable name with a space in between. If I go back into the FX box, I'm going to delete text 2 and just type a space. Again, text 3 will be their last name, so you can have constants. You can see it's put some quotes around that there. If I say OK to it, it's now joining the 2 names in the 2 columns with the space in between, and you can put anything in there. So the sort of thing you might use this for, in our second example here, is to make up an email address. Again, if I type equals concat, press the tab key, press the FX button, I might say I want the first name, and then I want a full stop, and then I come into the third box and I want the second name, and then the last bit I'm going to go at yorksj.ac.uk. And that's making a York St John student email address. First name, a dot, last name, and then yorksj.ac.uk. As with all of these examples, if you weren't to use the FX box, you've got to get all these commas and quotes right, and it makes it a lot harder. So coming on to text join down here, this is a slightly different function. It's basically saying join all the bits and pieces with a symbol in between them. So if I go equals and I go text join, again as soon as I got to the J, press the tab key, press the FX box. Now this has a strange order about it. The delimiter is the symbol you want in between each item that you're going to add in there. So if I wanted a dash, as is sometimes used in telephone numbers, I might do that. Then we've got a logical field. So if it's true, it's going to ignore any empty cells. If it's false, it'll actually include empty cells, and you'd get a double dash then. So I'm going to go for true. True is the default, so I don't even need to type anything into that box. I could enter all these columns in 3 different goes, using 3 different clicks. If, however, on the same line as I'm trying to make the formula, I hold the mouse down and swoop across, I'll end up with something like this that says table 3, so which table we're working in, the country column, colon, the phone column, and that means all the columns in between, so it includes the area column because that's in between them. Say OK to that, and here we are, we've got the dashes in between the contents of the columns there. The last thing are a few real-world examples. So part of this is actually analysing your data to try and work out what you should be putting in there. So it's all very well knowing some functions, but you've got to decide which ones to use. So luckily the answers are given here, and there's actually full answers on the next sheet along. Here I've been asked to check if these are staff or student accounts, and you need to know that staff accounts have one initial and a dot, student accounts have a full name and then a dot and the second name. So what I could do here is check what the second letter is. So that second letter going down here is either a dot for a staff account or it's another letter if it's a student account. Now, to get the second letter out, we need to get it out of there first on its own. So that, going back to the text functions, the way to get one letter out of somewhere is the mid function. So I'm going to go equals mid, and then again I'm going to click that FX button to get that up there to help me out with it. What text are we looking at? Well, we're looking at the email address just to the left there. What starting number? In this case I want to look at character number 2, start from there. How many characters do I want to look at? I want 1 character. So I want to get basically 1 character from position 2, and that's it. Say OK to that. This one says an E, that looks right to me. I'm going to drag it down. And so I've got E dot dot R for the different rows. Now, using a formula that we used on our previous course, XL3, we can test that. So I'm going to use the equals if function. So if does a little test. So what I want to do is I've already worked out what the second character is. So if I check if that is a full stop or not, if it's a full stop, then they are staff. If it's not a full stop, then they're students. So I'm going to say if, it's saying C2 because we're not using table notation here. It's saying if C2 equals, if I call up the FX box, that'll probably help me. It says C2 equals, I want it to check for a full stop. I've got to put the thing it's checking in quotes. So you're going to have to type those yourself, Shift and 2. You're asking a question, does what's in C2 equal a full stop? And if it does, if that's true, well, they must be staff. If not, they're going to be student. Say OK and drag that down. Now it's correctly identified because these two have full stops in the second letter, they must be staff. The other ones by default are students. Now I also want to illustrate here a way of working. I could have done this all in one formula. Would have been a bit more complicated. I would have been checking and getting the second character all in one go. But that's a lot more prone to error. I'd much prefer to set up things like this where you get the second character and you can visually check it yourself and see if it's looking like it's going to produce the right pattern. And then you've got a simpler test for the second step to literally check that one character and is it a full stop or isn't it? So although you could have combined these together, that makes it a lot harder to work out where it's gone wrong. If it had gone wrong at the first step, I can spot that. If it's gone wrong at the second step, but the first step looks right, I can spot that and make corrections. So second example, we want to find the username from these email addresses. So what that means is we want to get rid of the last bit, the @yorksj.ac.uk. Now, the thing you've got to spot here, we can't just take the first 10 letters or something off each one of these because they're different lengths. So we're actually going to need to find out how many characters running up until that @ symbol it is. So this, again, going back to the text things, this will be the find option. So the find option is going to tell us where a certain character is within the string that it's looking at. So I'm going to do that first. That's step 1, equals find, and a bracket. And again, call up that FX box, let it help you out. What are we looking for? The find text. We're looking for an @ symbol. Within text, where are we looking? We're looking in that email address. Starting number, we want to start from the start. The default is that it starts from the start, okay? So we'll say okay to that. Now that's the 13th character. Have a quick check, count along. That @ is the 13th character there. That looks about right to me. Copy it down to the other ones. Different numbers there. Spot check a few. Does it look right? Yes, it does. So the username is the left-hand bit of that string before you get to the @ symbol. So, again, going back to these string examples, left finds a few characters and gives you them back. So, I'm going to go equals left, and again, I'm going to press the tab key, press the FX box. What text are we looking in? We're looking in that email address. How many characters do we want? Now, we've already done some calculations because we've already said that the @ symbol is on the 13th character. So I might try just going, well, I've already found that. Say okay to that. And it's produced almost the right answer. It says lenny.henry4 @ but I don't really want the @ on there. And so I'm going to go back into that FX box. It's actually whatever number is in that column, the find column, -1. And you'll quite often find that when you're doing things with strings, you end up putting a -1 or a +1 just to adjust it because it's kind of counted 1 and then hasn't got quite the right place. That looks okay for that one. Let's copy it down and just see if that works for the other ones there. They've all got just the username, not got any ats on, not got any missing letters. Excellent. So on to the third example down the page. We want to find the year out of these module codes. Now, looking at this in a simple way, the module codes always have the year in the same place, or at least for most module codes. So MBB 7011M dash, and then we get the module code. So I can use a very simple one here, equals mid, and again I'm going to call up that FX box just to help me out. What text am I looking in? I'm looking in the module code that's given. Where am I starting from? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the 10th character. It should be the start of the year. And how many characters? We want 4 for the year. It's giving me a little preview in this box. That's quite reassuring that on the current line I'm on, it's picking up 2020. So I say OK to that. Drag that down. And they're all fine apart from that last one. Now, again, in the real world, if you had one row that was failing, you might decide to just manually fix that. you might say, well, actually, I'm going to let the rest be automatic, and I'm just going to take that hit and I'm going to go in there and literally type the right year in there, because that's just easier for me to fix. You might, however, want to put the effort in because you've got lots and lots of data going through this formula, and you might want to just make it a bit more sophisticated. So a bit like the example above where we're looking for where the at is, this one we're looking for where the first dash is. So we might say equals find, and then again fx box. What are we looking for? We're looking for a dash. Within which text? We're looking in that Moodle code. Again, start number not going to be needed here. If we're looking for the second dash, we might need to use things like start number, but that's a bit beyond the scope of today. So if I say that, there we go. We've got 9, and that looks about right for where the dash is. Again, we can copy that down and just check the different ones. So that anomalous one at the bottom, it's got 11, and the dash is in place 11 there, so that's looking hopeful. So to pull out the year, again we're doing a mid because we want to get a bit of the middle of the string, and again I'm going to press the tab key, press the FX key. What text am I looking in? Again, I'm looking back to the original Moodle code. Where do I want to start? Now, the dash is on position 9, so I can use the information from this column, but having seen what happened before when we tried it with the ats, I know that I actually need to be on the next one along from the dash, so I'm going to do +1. How many characters? Well, a year is still 4 characters. And again, just to give, it's working for this first one. Doesn't mean it's going to work for all of them, but it's a good starting point. Then we can copy that down, check it against all of these, and even that last one now, because we're finding where the dash is, moving on 1 character, getting the next 4 characters, that one's worked as well. So if you had a lot of data to process, it might be worth that extra step just to do it in what you might call a more robust manner than just finding a fixed position. And that should work for a wider range of input data. So you've got the answers to all of these on the final sheet, if you want to have a look at those. And your next steps in Excel may well be to take up MOS. Now, MOS is Microsoft Office Specialist Training. You can do exams in Word, PowerPoint and Excel. They take a certain level of self-revision, and then you can come onto the York campus and take a test with us. If you pass, you will get an internationally recognised certification to add to your CV, as well as gaining lots of knowledge on aspects of Excel, Word and PowerPoint. More help is available from Digital Training. Send us an email, book a tutorial session, or see the help pages on our website.